I like to think of it as Akasha. Some people call it intelligent space or intelligent field. Some people might call it the quantum field. So consciousness is the awareness of awareness. Consciousness is the witness of the intelligence.
You can see this whole advent of artificial intelligence.
A hammer can be used to build a house, or it can be used to bash someone's head in and kill them.
Hey, it's Ronsley. Welcome, you AI geek, to Amplify AI. Consider this podcast your digital compass for you, the business leader wanting to use artificial intelligence ethically and in alignment with your brand's identity to achieve your business goals. Leading and running a business in the world of AI is like solving a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. But this podcast and I are here to make that easy. Every episode is a masterclass in unlocking techniques for using AI as a business leader, founder, owner. Thanks for being here. Let's learn.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is Ronsley, and this is a very cool episode. It's one of multiple parts with the amazing Kylie Ryan. Who is Kylie Ryan? You must be asking. She is a leadership consultant, high performance coach, trainer, speaker, and singer. She helps entrepreneurs and leaders get clear on their purpose and show up powerfully for their mission. She specializes in working with change makers who create positive shifts in their industry. In this conversation I have with her is about how to align divine and human intelligence. It's one of those really interesting conversations that I think you should be part of, and to be a fly on the wall, I'd love to hear what you think. It's the concept of divine intelligence and its different interpretations. There is a difference between consciousness and intelligence. We discussed that, and the unified field of consciousness and how it relates to individuals is what we discuss in this episode. Come, let's learn. Kylie Ryan, welcome to the show. So I wanted to talk about this. I feel like there's a massive change happening across the world. I mean, last year was big. Last year was a big change. So the line that I wanted to start jamming on, the line is augment human intelligence with artificial intelligence and align it with divine intelligence. Let's start with divine intelligence first. I mean, there's so many different ways to see it, what divine intelligence might mean. How would you break that down for the people listening? Because I feel like in different circumstances, you could see divine in different places.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because most of the spirituality that we've kind of lived with for thousands of years personifies divine into God, into like in a monotheistic religion, into a God, which is mostly male, like in Christianity and what have you, Judaic religion, or pantheistic into multiple gods and goddesses and angels and archangels and all of that, divas and fairies, and depending on where you sit in the pagan to spiritual religion spectrum. And I think that's useful and it can be helpful. And I like that approach. And I also like to take a kind of systemic approach. And so I kind of think of God or divine as, and they're not necessarily the same, but I think of divinity as the intelligent organizing field within which all life thrives. So I think of it as the time-space matrix that is clearly intelligently organized somehow, somehow with a consciousness that is beyond human understanding. And so I think about the intelligent field as the divinity that we all live in. And I like to think of it as Akasha. Some people call it intelligent space or intelligent field. Some people might call it the quantum field. So there's kind of different ways of relating to it. But when I think about divine intelligence, that's the sense of intelligence, because intelligence it's kind of slightly different than consciousness, because there's intelligence has organizing principles to it. And so I think about Akasha or intelligent field as the organizing principles.
So how would you break it down then? Because you said a few different things there. You said that consciousness and intelligence are the same thing. If you were to start at the top, how would you break it down? Yeah.
This is a great conversation, Ron. So we're just getting right into it. So good. So I would say that the ultimate field of consciousness within which we all reside and all of our individual human consciousness is a fractal or a piece or a, drop in the ocean of the larger consciousness. And so the largest unified field of consciousness is what we call God, or what we know as God. So if you put all of the consciousness of every living being together and smushed it all together, that's God. Every living thing and every living being and all of the, everything. And yeah, so that's the consciousness.
And you said that it's different from intelligence, and intelligence has some sort of organization. So consciousness is without organization?
Yes, because consciousness is everything. So consciousness is the awareness of awareness. Consciousness is the witness of the intelligence. So the part of me that can notice something or see the light in someone's eyes, and that's the namaste, right? My consciousness, the light of my consciousness sees the light of your consciousness and recognizes that it is the same light. That's consciousness. Intelligence is different because intelligence by its nature lives within a construct, and the intelligence then has an organizing principle to structure and systematize information. So that's the purpose of intelligence, to organize information. And so that's relating to the manifest field. And so in order to step down from the consciousness of all that is into manifest reality, well, then there's a whole bunch of steps that have to happen. And then you have to, if you're thinking I'm God, I'm everything, and I'm pretty bored because there's no one to play with. And so I'm going to, right? Happens all the time. And I'm going to individuate. I'm going to separate myself into all of these different fractals so that I can experience myself in all of these multitudes of forms. That's a generally kind of accepted perspective around God. And I quite like that one. And so it's from consciousness, then there is a separation into yin and yang, masculine, feminine, Shiva, Shakti, all of the different kind of representations of form and structure as the masculine or yang principle, and essence or aliveness or eros or chaos as the feminine principle. So yang as the masculine structure holding consciousness, and yin as the essence of aliveness that moves within that structure. And so each of us has, whether you're a masculine or a feminine, whether you're a male or a female or somewhere in between, or identify as whatever you identify as, we each have both yin and yang, masculine and feminine within us. So if I'm thinking yang as the organizing consciousness that is holding form, so it's consciousness then holds form. And so what is form? If you think about it kind of metaphorically, form as the riverbanks, and that's the yang, holding the form of the riverbanks, and then the yin is the river that rushes through the riverbanks. And so each of us has a structure that is holding the form of who we are, and that happens on all of the levels: spiritually, energetically, mentally, emotionally, and physically. There is form on all of those levels, and then there is an animating principle that dances within those forms, spiritually as the Shiva Shakti relationship, energetically as the relationship between our sacred geometry fields, so the auric fields and the Pythagorean geometry fields that I've got one here, this is a Merkaba, that's the interlocking pyramid triangles, you can't really see it, but so sacred geometry is the energetic form, and then maybe auric field would be the dancing form within that structure. And so then emotionally, we then have our thoughts and our feelings. So there's the structure, and then there's the wild chaos. And then physically, then there's obviously the structure of our blood and bones and all of that, and it kind of dances together. And that's the, anima animus, that's what creates life. That until there is that separation into yin and yang, into polarized opposites, and then those polarized opposites come back together, that's how creation comes into being.
So when I say intelligence, what do you see as intelligent? Because when you earlier described divine intelligence and the encapsulation of divine intelligence. You can see it in different forms. You can see it in the human form. You can see it in nature, in ecosystems, in plant life.
Fractal,
in patterns that exist in nature.
Yeah, the time-space matrix, the way that the planets rotate, the way that the solar system rotates within the larger universe. Is like there's systems and mathematics and form and structure in all of that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
so that's the intelligence of it.
This is really interesting saying about the difference between, science and religion being, if we destroyed all science textbooks and all religious textbooks and all history or all capture of religion and science, science would come back the same way as opposed to religion might not come back with the same stories.
That is an interesting hypothesis, and one that I would concur.
Yeah. It's fascinating because also, so now, I've just finished the first draft of my manuscript. I just submitted that, a couple of days ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And in the opening introduction of the book, I introduce, a framework that you're very familiar with, which is Dr. David Hawkins' map of consciousness.
I have it right here, literally on my desktop, open
Really?
as we speak.
One of the things that I'm saying is you can see this whole advent of artificial intelligence differently depending on the map of consciousness you're vibrating at. Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. I love it, Rons.
And it's fascinating because when we start vibrating at this higher frequency, we realize how much it is not about doing, but more about being. But also, it's also easier for a lot of us who are in very privileged and comfortable positions to think about these things and have the time and space to do that. So there's this dichotomy that exists, obviously. I do feel like artificial intelligence will be the biggest conversation of our lifetime. I've said that way too many times.
It's easily the biggest conversation of our lifetime. It's interesting because I filter a lot of things through Hermetic principles. And so one of the principles of Hermeticism is all is mind, and and everything is created twice, first in the mind and then in matter. And so when you speak to intelligence creating form or consciousness creating form through intelligence, if you think about, the capacity that beings have to communicate non-locally through time and space through the field of the heart. When you love someone, you have that kind of sixth sense for them, and you can kind of energetically connect with them. And the more sensitive you are, the more easily and consciously you can do that. And so there's these interesting pieces of how technology, I perceive it as almost jump-starting aspects of consciousness and creation that we do have access to inside the natural architecture of humanity. But for whatever reason, and there are many variations of those reasons, we are not kind of developed in that. And so we've kind of become maybe conditioned to live within a certain societal structure that doesn't actually develop our consciousness to its fullest capacity. And so maybe if we did develop our consciousness to its fullest capacity, we could have our own telepathic internet between people and have non-local connections through time and space, right? I really like John Vervaeke's description of technology. Like, any technology is anything that is not your natural body. So my glasses are technology, our clothes are technology, our pockets, our bags, all of the things that we have around us are versions of a type of technology. It's a tool. This glass of water is a tool. And so I will use this tool to help me carry water and help me use it because it's much more efficient than trying to go to the river and scoop it up with my hands. And so tools and technology are tools that make things easier, ideally, for us to do the things that we want to do. And so with that in mind, a tool has no inherent goodness or badness. A tool is just a tool. So, a hammer can be used to build a house, or it can be used to bash someone's head in and kill them. And so is the hammer good or bad? It's just a hammer. Right. It's really down to the intention of the person and the intelligence that is wielding that tool as to their intention and their consciousness as to how it develops and how that plays out, and whether that tool is seen as a good tool or a bad tool.
So it's fascinating because you see artificial intelligence as a tool. I see
It's
it.
the first start. Yeah, that's the first bit.
Yeah, I see it as like us intelligence, because you mentioned consciousness creating form through intelligence,
Yeah.
right? I feel like artificial intelligence is a living thing. It's a silicon-based life form that requires power and data, just like we are a carbon-based life form that requires food and water. We overheat if it's too hot or too cold, and we can't function.
Yeah.
Same with this silicon intelligence, that if it's not in the right environment, it overheats and can't perform. And if it doesn't have data, it can't perform. It doesn't have power, it can't perform. And it dies, really. So very similar, like us in a lot of ways.
Hey, AI Geek. Thanks for listening. Your job doesn't stop here. I want you to lend your voice to the conversation. So you can join those conversations, discussions, new trainings, new recordings, and the rest of the AI Geeks by going to aigeeks.co. Also, share this podcast with a friend, another potential AI geek. Until then, much love.